be fine. That's it.
Okay, we're live.
We're live. Excellent. Good morning, everyone. For those of you that are joining us. Excellent. Confirmation that we are live. So, we have something quite exciting for you today. We're going to be talking about applying some of our hours that we will hopefully be joined by some
King's Academy Lewis.
Academy in just a moment. So we're just going to wait around for them for just a little bit. But very quickly, I'll give you an introduce to you here. So my name is James. Behind the camera, we have Chris.
Hello.
Fantastic Facebook man. And this lovely, scruffy little gem here is Jackson. Now, hopefully, we'll be going out and giving Jackson a little bit of exercise this morning. But we shall see. Like I said, we're just going to wait around a little bit for obviously the coming to join us. I'm just going to shoot in and grab his food. Right. So, yeah.
Shall we wait, Jackson? So this is our glorious owl sanctuary. We have 19 owls. Not all of them are contained in the sanctuary. We also have some outside enclosures. The majority of our owls are flown daily. The owl sanctuary is open every day at knockhatch.com.
Yeah, trying to keep it clean. But yeah, as Chris was saying, we do make sure that all these guys, even when you guys aren't around, we're obviously looking after them. So they're all flying every day. Yeah, they might not if they're a little bit chubby or they are molting. So then at one point in the year, oh, here.
Good morning, King's Academy. You are live on Facebook as well.
It's all right up, guys, yeah?
Thank you, Jim.
Right, so are we ready to go? Yeah? All right, excellent.
Introduction.
So, hello everyone, my name is James. Behind the camera, we have Chris, who's in charge of our Facebook and everything online. And what we're basically going to do today is hopefully giving you a little bit of insight into what the animal staff do here with the animals, telling you a little bit about them, what we do, why we do it, and about the individuals themselves. So this lovely little lad here is Jackson. And by the way, if you guys do think of any questions and want to ask anything, you can have the little box. Raise your hand. Yes, put your hand up, and hopefully we'll get around and hopefully be able to answer them all. So what we'll be focusing on today is the sort of husbandry and looking after of the birds of prey we have. Now, this little fella here is, as I said, called Jackson, and you've just missed what I usually do, but I will go through it all the same to give you an idea of what goes into looking after these guys. So every day, we'll take these birds, we'll take them out of their aviary, which they obviously spend the night in, spend most of their time in a nice big area they can fly about, and basically all they do is sleep. But what we do is we take them out their aviary, we take them over here, we take them over to these scales, and you'll never guess, weigh them. So the reason we're doing this is because it gives us a really good indication as to what that bird might be feeling today, what he might be getting up to, and whether he's going to basically want to do anything. And it's a really important part of looking after, well, any animal really. If any of you guys have pets at home, it's important to keep track of their weight, make sure the dog or the cat isn't getting too circle shaped. So we weigh them just to give a nice idea of how healthy they are. And after that, what we usually do, we'll pop one of these on, which is our telemetry system, which is basically a little tracker, which means we can basically keep track of them if they get spooked or fly off by anything. And other than that, all we do is we change their food depending on their weight, and then we go out and give them a bit of exercise. So all of our birds here, apart from the ones that are having a little break and regrowing feathers, fly daily, weather permitting, and it's all there. Essentially, we use them to educate people, to teach them about things that these guys are struggling with in the wild, how we can help, what we can do to basically make their lives a little bit better. Now, for Jackson, he's quite lucky because he's an African spotted eagle owl. So he actually in the wild is doing well. He isn't suffering much at all. So what we will do is we will head out onto the field, yeah? And hopefully I'll be able to show you what we get up to with these guys to make sure that they're fit and healthy. Very easy today. Now, obviously this will be quite a good little insight into what we do, and who knows when it comes to, is it year 10 work experience?
7.
Year 7.
Year 10 you do work experience in? Also, yeah,
We'll find out and add it to our Facebook post.
so long ago. But yeah, hopefully it might give you guys a little bit of an insight into what we do, and possibly you might want to come along and give us a hand.
I will try to keep up with Jackson as he flies. So if you hear a 45-year-old man slightly out of breath, it's because I'm running after him.
So this is where we fly our bird. With a little green, it's in quite a nice, quiet part of the park. We don't have too much. It sounds quite sort of distracting having a, however, 50, 70 foot high water slide over there and huge trampolines. But these guys are really, really used to it, and they're quite happy to come out and work about. So what we do with these guys, as I've been saying, we give them a little fly around. Now Jackson flies to the glove. So what we do is we wear the special glove, which he's very eager to fly to today, which basically gives them a nice area to land on, keep themselves nice and sort of comfortable, and also it keeps my hand from getting scratched up. One thing I will quickly say about Jackson is you might notice that he's just under his beak. He's very scruffy, and he's actually got a little bit of a bald patch. Now, what's happened here is he's got that covered in mud from where he decided he's going to try and eat a lump of mud. And as he's tried to groom it out, he's unfortunately plucked a few of those feathers, but the rest have molted out. So Jackson, because he's an African bird, he's just going to be going up for his rest in a minute. Well, in a couple of weeks. So he will be given a chance to regrow all of those feathers, and hopefully, sort of when he comes next year, just as the summer sort of begins, he'll be fully feathered and ready to have a fly around, which will be lovely. He is usually one of our show birds, but we've moved him into this morning just so he can get a bit of exercise, and lovely Jackson, and basically get used to what we expect him to do. I will be honest, Jackson doesn't usually fly this early, so I was expecting him to be quite sluggish, but he's very on the ball today. He's barely letting me get away from him.
This one. Has anyone got any questions?
Questions? Okay, we have a question.
We have a question. Excellent. Go on.
Why do snowy owls usually go in snowy areas?
Was that about the snowy owls? Sorry, it's a bit of an echo.
Why do snowy owls stay in cool places?
Why do snowy owls stay in cool places? So, for the snowy owls, basically what you've got to imagine is obviously all birds have feathers. And the way feathers work is they're sort of interlocking like that along their back, which makes them streamline, it allows them to fly, lets them get around underneath them. For the snowy owls, though, their feathers are much more like that. They're interlocking, and they're essentially built. So, compared to a bird like a barn owl, where you can quite easily sort of poke your finger through the back of the bird's head, with a snowy owl, its feathers are so tightly knit together, it's almost impossible to get through them. It's incredibly difficult. So the reason they stay in those colder climates is because they're so tightly locked. If they were to come into hotter climates or migrate down to places like Central America or Middle East, things like that, it would simply be too hot for them. We do have a snowy owl here called Blizzard. It's only just started to get cooler for him to actually start flying again. Up until recently, it's been too hot. And what we end up doing is we'll go around every day, check on him, especially during the summer, make sure he's okay. And if he's looking a bit hot, what we'll do is we'll put some ice in his bath or we'll spray him down with a hose. So they do require a lot of attention, but it is mainly due to those tight locking feathers, but also they are bright white. And if you were to put a bright white bird in a forest, it's going to stand out like a small thumb. Small thumb? Small thumb. So they tend to stick to areas where they can sort of blend in to the colder climate.
Okay, we have another question.
Excellent.
What's the average weight of an owl?
Oh, what's the average weight of an owl? Well, unfortunately, all owls are different sizes. Really, really depends. Now, with Jackson here, Jackson is just shy of 1.5 pounds. So, if you try to imagine that, 1 pound is about the weight of a bag of sugar, if that. So, there's really nothing to them. They're incredibly light animals. So, it really does differ. But it goes from anything from Jackson, who, if we were to do it in grams, is about 700 grams. And then you go all the way down to the smallest owls, they're going to be about 20, 50 grams. And if you go all the way up, they can be up to about 2 or 3 kilograms. So it does vary massively depending on the species. Do you have any more questions?
Any more questions? How many owls have you got? Yeah, we've got another question.
Go on.
How many owls do you have?
We have 19 owls, and then we have a few other stuff. So other than the owls, what we have is, you've got yourself in an awkward position there, good boy. Other than the owls, we have our cockatoo, we have our blue and gold macaws, and then we have a couple of laughing kookaburras, and then we have some of our sort of mammals as well. But with 19 of these guys, who we look after, and they're a mixture of birds that we've had reared ourselves for education, and birds that couldn't be looked after by people who basically didn't have time for them. So Jackson's actually one of those birds. He was given to us because the people who had him before couldn't fly him. He was too scared. And what happened is, when you're working with these birds, you want to raise them. So there's something called an imprint, which is where, if you think of it, it's a bit like raising anything, like a dog or a cat, or from a puppy or a kitten. They don't imprint as such, but they get used to people, they grow up around them, and they like being with people. It's quite similar to this, except with imprinting, you take it a step further, and the first thing these birds see is a human face. So they immediately assume that that's mum and dad. So Jackson thinks I'm his dad. As a result, he's very calm out here, and he can quite happily come out and work quite happily. He's paying attention instead of looking up into the distance. Jackson, come here, buddy. So he, besides the fact that I've got food as well, he quite likes being around people because he feels safe. He ain't got anything in that foot. And they want to be around people, yeah. Another one, excellent.
What's your question?
How did barn owls get their name?
What was that?
Why do barn owls get
Why do
their name?
barn owls get their name? Well, what you've got to think is people who name animals were very, very original. So, when it comes to naming an animal, if you go back 100 years, you still could do this. They'd either be named after yourself. You can't actually do that anymore. They said it was getting too ridiculous. You were getting too many birds called the same things because you just wanted to name it after yourself. So they'll either be named after a person, named after the place they're found, or what they look like or what they do. So in Jackson's case, he's sort of a bunch of these put together. He's the African spotted eagle owl. So he comes from Africa, and if you look along his wings, he's got those lovely white spots. So, and he's a member of the eagle owl family. And to go back to the barn owl, the reason they're called a barn owl is they live in barns. That's the sort of, when we first started to document animals and give them names and realize what they were properly, good boy, they decided the only place you were really finding these barn owls was in barns. So they got named that. Originally, before barns were a thing, though, it was suspected that they would live close to sort of cliff edges and things like that, on quarries where the chalk was exposed. And that was sort of supported by the barn owl's white front. So before they were called barn owls, it was sort of suspected that they were called cliff owls. But we're not entirely sure. There's not too much written about them before the Romans came along and invented barns. So, yeah.
Any
You
more
want to talk
questions?
about? You love the ear tufts,
I do
don't
love
you?
the ear tuft.
So I briefly mentioned that Jackson's a member of the eagle owl family. He's actually the second smallest member of this family. And being an eagle owl means basically two things. One, you've got incredibly powerful feet. Jacksons are quite diddy, so we're not going to focus too much on them because you might get a bit self-conscious. But the other thing that's sort of synonymous with the family of eagle owls, and there's only one exception to this, is they all have these little feathers on the top of their head called ear tufts.
Holding it now in my hand.
Now, they're absolutely nothing to do with their ears. What they're sort of suspected to be for is either communication. So if he's happy, he'll have them right up on end. Jackson's never happy, so he never has them up. But when they're sort of focused and hunting, they push them down like they are now. And that's because he's basically hunting me, he's getting his dinner. Now, the only bird that doesn't have the ear tufts that's part of the eagle owl family is actually the snowy owl. They've got a nice flat head. I have another question.
How many different species of owls do you have?
Do we have? We have 19 birds. We probably have about 13 different species of owl.
Wow.
In the wild, though, there is about just over 210 different species of owl, and about 20 of those are different barn owls. About 40 of those are eagle owls, and a large percentage of the western wood owls. So there aren't actually that many different types of owl. It's just made up of these three big families.
Which species do we have, James?
Which species do we have?
Yeah.
We have the snowy owl, the African spotted eagle owl, we have the tawny owls. We then have three different types of barn owl. We have an African species, we have the British species, and then we have the ashy-faced, which is from the Dominican Republic. We then have the Siberian eagle owl, the rocky eagle owl, the Eurasian eagle, the Varu eagle owl, the great grey owls, the spectacled owls, the Asian brown wood owls, the striped owls, the southern white-faced owls, and I believe that is it.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, that is it.
Do we have any more questions?
No, I think that's all the questions we got. Thank you.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you.
Right. So you don't have any questions, so I'm going to be quite mean, and I'm going to ask you a question. Because there's a lot of things that people think are true about owls, but actually aren't. So I'm going to ask, what time of day do owls come out at?
Night.
So nighttime. Nighttime, yeah. So you've fallen for my trap. Actually, only around 40% of owls are nocturnal. So the rest of them, Jackson included, actually comes out during the day. And what we call is, does anyone know what we call a bird that comes out during nighttime? What the word is for that?
Shout out.
Nocturnal.
Nocturnal, yes, brilliant. So we call a bird that comes out during the nighttime nocturnal. If it comes out during the day, we call it diurnal, very original. So it's literally you just change knock for day. And then the other time of day is dawn and dusk, which they decided to throw in a horrible word called crepuscular. So if it comes out during the dusk, it's crepuscular, so birds like your barn owls. During the day, so Jackson here, diurnal, and then you've got things like tawny owls.
Nearly. Okay. Sorry, miss. Right. Can we say thank you very much?
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, guys. It's been amazing talking to you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
If your school or academy would like to participate in a virtual animal live stream, please tag your school in the comments.
Brilliant.
Thank you so
very
much, Knights Academy, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you online or in the park sometime in the future.
Great. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we're still live.
We're still live. Excellent. Thank you, obviously, all of those that have joined us on Facebook, watching us as well, and those who are going to watch it later. If you'd like to come along to a park, it's nice and quiet on the weekdays, and you can get a chance to see us flying the rest of our team. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to come over. If you find a member of staff that's covered in mud and looks slightly tired, that will be an animal staff member. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, James. And goodbye, everybody.